A statue surfaces in Venice after 400 years, credited to the wrong artist. A present day historian risks her career to prove it was carved by a courtesan that history has passed over on purpose. And in 1609, that courtesan is trying to stay alive long enough to finish the work. I'm Carol Cram, host of the Art and Fiction podcast, and today my guest is Kerry Chaput, author of The Secret Courtesan. Welcome to the Art and Fiction podcast, Kerry.
Hi, Carol. Very happy to be here.
Well, I just loved The Secret Courtesan. I just finished it. For set in Venice. Who wouldn't love that? So give us a bit of an overview of the novel. It's a dual timeline, and what's it about?
It is about a modern historian who is tasked with authenticating the artist of a erotic statue that was unearthed in Venice. And a lot is riding on this authentication. She's expected just to sign off of it, and everything seems straightforward. She's got a promotion lined up, and there's a lot of money behind this statue. But she has this little voice inside of her that she believes that it is not the famous male artist that everyone believes, but is actually sculpted by a woman that history erased.
Which, as we know from yours, I'm sure you found out in your research, is plausible. Just because we don't know about them doesn't mean they did not exist.
Absolutely. Right? And we talked earlier about Artemisia Gentileschi. They just found one of her paintings in the last few years in a storage room in Hampton Court Palace covered in dust, right? So this is a real thing that is happening, is that women artists from the time either are not assumed to be their work. They assume it to be, their mentors, their fathers, or their contemporaries, or they're just lost to time. It's a very real thing.
Thank goodness it's starting to change. There are so many more exhibitions lately of women artists from the period, from the 15th, 16th century. My own novel, The Towers of Tuscany, is about a fictional woman artist in the 14th century. And as I was writing it, the first thing I did was I actually got hold of an expert. And I said, okay, I know that we don't know of any, but was it plausible that there could have been? She goes, oh, yeah.
Yes, I know.
Which is all you need as a novelist, right?
Right. And when I started writing the story, I thought, okay, I've heard of female painters from the Renaissance. There are a few that are documented. And I went searching and I could not find any large scale sculptors that were women documented. And I went, I know they were there. They just were not being recorded, or they have been erased. And then the fascination really digs in, and I took off with the story.
And of course, the novel is actually fictional. There was no Luca Armani, but you made the world so real that I went ahead and actually Googled him. And I realized, oh yeah, no, it is fictional. And I Googled Sofia Rossi. And
I'm so glad that it was real for you.
It was. Wait a minute, the most famous sculpture in the world? I haven't heard of that. And I've been to Venice lots of times.
Yeah,
so that was wonderful.
That's fictional, yeah.
No, but it was great because, again, it's plausible. It's absolutely plausible that they could find a sculpture in the canal. So actually, let's talk a little bit about Venice. I presume you went to Venice as part of your research.
Not to write this book. I went a few times in my 20s, but I didn't go in writing. I wanted to, but I just couldn't make it happen.
Oh, that's too bad. I was just there last year and going again next year. My husband's an artist and he has another show there next year.
Great.
So anytime he gets a show in Venice, we go, yes, let's go. Venice.
Absolutely.
But it's wonderful. And you really captured Venice from the 1609 and Venice from now, which actually isn't all that different. You can still imagine it, those tiny little alleyways. It's getting a little bit inundated now with tourists, but you can still, in the evening, after they all leave, it's still magical. And you can still imagine what it would be like.
Absolutely. And when you are writing sort of a action adventure story like I like to do, I have to know exactly what the streets look like. And I have to pull up old maps, as old as I can find.
Yeah.
And in other, I have a trilogy set in France in the 1600s, and trying to track down what Versailles looked like over the different decades was like, I had to draw my own maps, right? Oh. Then I get to this book and I'm like, oh, Venice looks the same. Like everything's the same. That's amazing.
It's one of the few places that is like that. I mean, it wasn't bombed, thankfully. And they haven't done anything to it. Thank goodness. I hope they never, they never will, unless it sinks. But
we can't think of that.
Yeah, no. So let's talk about courtesans, because courtesans are a very fascinating subsection of society at that time. So you'd made your Sofia a courtesan. So tell us about that.
Well, I have had a long time fascination with courtesans. There was a movie back in the 90s called Dangerous Beauty. I don't know if you remember that, but it was based off of Veronica Franco, who also inspired my story. She was sort of the premier courtesan of the time. And the reason that they're so fascinating to me is that they were sex workers, but they were so much more. They were given freedoms that most women of the time were not. They were given access to education. They could read, they could write, they could do the arts. They were dancers and writers and performers and poets, and many were published. They had a level of sophistication and a level of education that was absolutely not available to most women of the time, especially women of station. They actually had more freedom than the women of station. So the courtesans were allowed to walk outside without chaperones. They were sitting in the highest political circles and were even engaging in these conversations with powerful political leaders. So they were very interesting people in the fabric of that society.
Yes, they absolutely were. Well, let's talk a little bit about Mia and her role as an authenticator.
Mhm.
So this was a whole world of art authentication. How did you research this?
It was a challenge, a huge challenge. I had to turn to friends and I was reading as much as I could, but there's a lot about the hierarchy of the art world and a lot of laws and international law, and it gets very confusing. It was the most difficult part of researching this whole book. The historical research was easy, really, comparatively.
Really?
And it was very hard to find why Mia would have been asked to authenticate it. So I actually had to turn to a few friends who are in the art world. And I said, okay, why would she be put in this position?
Yeah.
And then a few of them helped me come up with the idea of Sotheby's and a house that before they could really sell it or move it forward, they would need someone to authenticate the research. I thought, okay, that makes sense. So it kind of fit, but it was a lot of work to try to understand that world. I'm still a little bit confused about it.
Yes. Well, and of course, it's all about money, isn't it? Which is
Yes.
sort of one of the
And
tragedies in a
power,
way, power
right?
and money. And
Yeah.
so you get the whole dark side of
Mhm.
art world, which you brought into the novel.
Yeah,
Because, yeah, that currency is huge. I mean, what else is worth millions and millions of dollars?
absolutely.
Yeah, it's too bad.
It is.
So for those of us who love art, it is a unfortunate side of the art world for
It
sure.
is.
So you built a career writing about women left out of the record. You've got your Substack, Badass Women in History, which totally resonates with me because all my novels are about women artists. So what was it about Sofia that made you wanted to build a whole novel around her as a sculptress?
Yeah, I was researching different women artists of the Renaissance and the Baroque period. And there's definitely some documented painters and there's some musicians and writers. There's some women in the historical record that were successful, but I really couldn't find any large scale sculptors that were women. And I
Yeah.
looked and I looked and I looked. There were some that did small scale, like peach pits, like, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But large, like marble and stone, I just couldn't find anyone. And I thought, I know that women were a part of every single piece of history. I know they were there. They just probably have been, their work has been misattributed or has been taken, stolen, or forgotten or dismissed, as does happen with female artists in history. And I thought, well, that's what I want to write, is the thing that we still haven't completely discovered yet. I believe we will find some sculptors, women sculptors from history still.
Sure, we will. And there are more and more artists that are coming to light from the 17th, 16th century. There's been a lot
Mhm.
of really great expositions lately in Europe, that cover everybody
Yes.
from Sofonisba to
Mhm.
Artemisia, of course. And as I think I mentioned earlier, my novel is about a woman artist in the 14th century who is not real, but when I was writing it, I asked an expert, so is it plausible that there could have been women artists?
Oh,
Because, of
yeah.
course, they didn't sign their work. And she goes, oh, yeah,
Right.
of course, because
Right.
like her father didn't have a son, so he taught her.
Yep.
Still, it wasn't easy because, of course, that was the whole point of the novel.
Exactly.
But,
But that's the point of writing women's history, right? It's
yes.
because it is still this world that we don't really understand.
No, and poor Sophia's ending is not a happy one. Was that always the plan, or how did you?
Yes,
I
it was
don't I don't
always
want
the
to have any spoilers in particular, but it kind of
yeah,
had to, didn't it?
I did. And I knew from the beginning that it would have to be a bit of a tragic ending. Veronica Franco, she fell from grace through things that were not really her fault. And I knew that that was the harsh reality of courtesan work, is that you ended young. The career didn't last very long, and it was a very rough life. So you shine bright for a short time, and then things kind of fall apart. I have to admit, when I was writing, I did kind of consider, maybe could I change this story? And I just knew I had to write what felt right for
Would
history.
have been, yes. And there is, yes, she constantly talks about, okay, I'm 24, so I don't have much time left.
Yeah.
And then what the alternative, and you do actually go into what the alternative will be for her when she actually, for a short time, is in the brothel, which is
Yeah.
horrifying. And so
Horrifying.
many women, that was their fate. Oh, gosh.
I know.
Yeah.
And
So,
aging out at 24. I mean, come
I
on.
know. So what was the rest of her life going to look like? What could she possibly do?
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, it was very tragic. It's women's stories, and it's great that we as authors can kind of redress it a little bit by showing what could have been or what was, but what we just don't know.
Absolutely. And I think as a writer, I really love writing the nonfiction Substack articles where I can really dig into the facts of everything, compare historical stories to the things that we're going through now. But the fiction, that's what really lights me up, because I get to dive into that world and then live it and breathe it and expand on it so that I can
Yes.
actually feel what this woman artist would have gone through at the time.
Exactly. So the Secret Courtesan runs on two timelines. You have your art historian in the present day and the courtesan Sofia in 1609 Venice. So which one did you write first, and did one timeline demand more of you than the other?
Ooh, that's a good question. I began writing it chronologically, meaning I opened with Mia, the modern storyline. That was the first chapter that I wrote because I wanted to establish kind of what was real. I did play around with opening with Sofia, and it just didn't really quite feel right. It felt like we need grounded a little bit more in like facts and what we know. And then I kind of went back and forth to do the two storylines, and then they moved along, and it was kind of fun because when you get kind of stuck in one storyline, you go back to the other one and you get kind of regenerized or energized again. And then I hit a point about in the middle, midway, where I realized I didn't know all the answers from the historical line. And so trying to write a puzzle in the modern line was really difficult. I wanted this to feel very much like the Da Vinci Code. I actually pitched it as the Da Vinci Code with a feminist twist. So there's lots of puzzles and cliffhangers. And I really couldn't write that until I understood what the historical line was doing, what happened, what was the ending.
Yeah.
So at one point, I just put the modern line aside and just wrote the whole historical kind of middle to end and tied that up with a nice little bow so that I understood what happened in the past so that I could go back and finish, the modern story.
It's sort of a combination of being a pantser to start, and then towards the end, you had to do a bit of outlining, I would imagine.
I didn't outline not one thing in this whole story, which.
Okay, so even when you wrote the ending, you didn't know what was going to happen from scene to scene.
Nope, never.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I just really go, because for me, it really makes the process so exciting. It's my favorite part of the process is drafting this new story, because you kind of go, I wonder what she's going to do today. This is fun. And then you're in it, and then she does something and you think, oh, I did not see that coming. It just kind of feeds you as you're writing. And I find that just the most exciting part of the process.
You find it sometimes gets difficult though, because it kind of wrecks what you thought you were going to do, or what has happened up till then, or I get blindsided sometimes.
Oh yeah, my edits are really rough. I have to edit a really long time, and I know that this is not the ideal process for a lot of people. But this one, I didn't have to edit quite as deeply as some of my other ones. Some I really explore wherever the story takes me or wherever my emotions kind of go. And sometimes it pulls me down a line that I hit a dead end and think, well, that was the wrong turn. So I kind of have to erase that and go back. But for me, that's the fun, is just following all those little wormholes to try to find the story that you never would have seen had you just outlined it.
Point. And you have to be willing to go down those holes and be willing to say, okay, no, it's not going to work.
To erase it. That's exactly it.
That chapter goes into the hard drive. Of course, you never erase anything. But,
I've never used them, though. I keep them.
Might not use them, but you never know.
Never know.
So I sometimes think, oh, well, I've written it, I have to use that. And that actually is not a very good thing to do as a novelist.
I agree with you. I think that that's really important. And my friends that are that are outliners,
Yeah.
I always encourage them in their books, just take a little risk. Just go a little side path, just for a little, just because I feel like that's where the magic is sometimes. It's just those little unexpected, even if it's a detail, unexpected detail about the personality or about the world that you sometimes can't come up with from the outside, but you're in it and you get this little feeling of maybe I could make this happen. Just explore it a little bit, even if you don't
I
need
like
to.
that. I find that inspiring for where I am right now, about 30,000 words in on the new novel. I think sometimes I get so obsessed with, oh, I got to get more words down. I got to
Yeah.
finish this, that I don't want to waste time by going down what might be a wormhole.
Right.
You're inspiring me because I'm thinking, wait a minute, just let it go. This is the first draft. It's great. And you're
And you
right.
know, sometimes they're not going to work out, but then sometimes you'll take a turn and something magical will happen. And then something will line up with your historical research and you think, oh, this was meant to happen. Like, that's pretty great.
I know. Well, we do this for the magic. It's the process, right?
Yeah. Yep, it is.
Sure. So would you like to do a short reading for us from the Secret Courtesan?
Sure, I would be happy to. I chose a short chapter which is from Mia's viewpoint, the modern historian, and this sets up a little bit of where we're at as the tension's starting to build. So Mia has her theory about the sculptor of the famous statue, and she has sort of befriended another historian who also believes there might be something more to the story. So the two of them are together trying to figure this out. They're on a timeline and she's kind of losing hope. Okay. 2 a.m. in the library lounge. Eerie quiet smothers us as old wood creaks like arthritic bones. Amid empty takeaway containers and the scent of bitter coffee, we collapse in the realization that we have nothing more than we did 5 hours ago. The documents on female artists prove lean and unhelpful, just as they've always been. As my time here dwindles to its last hours, all I can do is share what I believe in hopes that something will direct me forward. There are plenty of women painters, Noah says. Longhi and Fontana, Sirani, La Tintoretta, perhaps they secretly sculpted? No, I review the facts. The carbon dating indicates the sculpture was created between 1600 and 1612. The powerful woman narrative matches Artemisia Gentileschi, but she's not known to have sculpted. Properzia de Rossi did marble work more than 100 years earlier. Noah rubs his eyes. There's a reason Dr. Byron feels so secure. Nothing from the artists of the time contradicts his findings. Yet, I lean back in my chair, staring blankly at the table of documents. What are you thinking? He asks. Against all logical reasoning, I want to tell Noah everything. Laws prevented women from studying art and anatomy. They couldn't apprentice or obtain materials. He slides the pile of scribbled papers away. If the Astasi was sculpted by a woman no one has heard of, then Italy had one of the only Baroque female sculptors, and history all but forgot her. His face twists into a confused grimace. A hesitant smile tugs at my lips. That's been my theory since I laid eyes on her. Wait, you sat here with me for 5 hours while I figured this out, he says. Why didn't you just tell me? Now, where's the fun in that? I'm playing coy, but now that this is out, I can never turn back. I've been too afraid to face this impossible decision. Besides, this night was exciting, more exhilarating than anything I've felt in years. My heart powders into my throat when I notice his thick, messy hair. Looking into his eyes is all too much, so I busy myself clearing containers that earlier held curry noodles and fish and chips. Noah sighs with the slightest huff. You're leaving? It's the middle of the night, Dr. Beckett. You're exhausted, and I need to review the statement for Monday. Stay logical, Mia. You still have a job to do. Once the remnants of the night have been cleared and the papers filed away in their proper drawers, Noah and I awkwardly face each other. I tighten my coat as he rocks back on his heels. Thank you for indulging me, I say. His fallen face shouldn't disappoint me as much as it does. I'll walk you home. That's very nice, but no need. He reaches for the door and motions me through. Not a word about it. I won't be able to sleep unless I know you made it home safely. Concern for me. He doesn't see me as an uptight researcher, but a woman who doesn't like to go home. That would be nice. We huddle under an umbrella, his arm solid next to mine. The heat from my body makes me want to lean against his chest, to curl together by a roaring fire and pretend Monday isn't fast approaching. The pattering rain lifts a mossy, earthy smell from the ground with every step we take. Back home in California, the warm air makes it easy to live in solitude. Here, the cold and the layers of clothes make my body hunger for closeness. This is me. I point to a sad building primarily used for graduate students. Happy birthday, Dr. Beckett. I want to stay here in the stale espresso and fading cologne of his purple jumper, but I'll be on a plane 2 days from now dealing with the aftermath of this trip. I'll accept a promotion and acknowledge that my feelings mean nothing without proof. The Astasi is whatever the collective deems her to be. With mystery dancing in his eyes, he says, You wanted me to go through the process of questioning everything we think we know. I can imagine how scared you are of blowing everything up. I paused to take in his intense gaze, which is sexy as hell. There's nothing to blow up. We didn't find anything. There must be proof somewhere. Think of all the people lost to time. That's called women's history. The records will disappoint you every time. I unlocked the door and already miss his body next to mine.
Oh, nice. That sets that up beautifully. I really like Mia, and I like the fact that she's kind of flawed and she's got a lot of problems. And
Yes.
so she grows throughout the novel, which of course is what you want. But it was something that occurred to me there as you were talking about how there were laws against women being able to get materials and stuff. And I remember reading somewhere when I was doing my own research, they don't have laws for things that don't happen. So therefore, that was a problem. Women were trying to do things, so they
Right.
had
That's a
to have a
good
law
point.
against it.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
they, they don't, you don't put a law out for something that doesn't exist.
It's hypothetical. Right. Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
So that means they were doing it. And then they had
Yes.
to put a stop to it, but they were doing it. So
Mhm.
yeah, I learned that a while back. And I went, okay, that makes a lot of sense.
I
So of
love
course,
that.
yeah, yeah. So we always think, oh, there's a law against it. Yeah, but why was there a law against it?
Uh-huh.
Because someone was doing something that
That's right.
they didn't like. So there you go. I thought that was kind of useful to know for we as especially when we're looking into
Absolutely.
women's history, you know.
Absolutely. That is a really good point.
Yeah, yeah. They had to keep us down. But, but we obviously were trying not to be kept down, so they had
Right.
to have
Exactly.
laws.
We're working on it.
So one of my goals with the Art and Fiction podcast is to inspire other authors. So what's one thing you learned from writing The Secret Courtesan that you didn't know before?
In regards to to the writing process or like historical research.
Something that jumps out at you that you learned that you didn't know.
Um, I think I think writing strong women characters. It's really interesting because I think in historical, especially, we have a tendency to lean into the voiceless woman who finds her voice. Like that's a common theme that you're going to see. And there's nothing wrong with that story. But I wanted to write women who already had a voice and didn't apologize for it. And it's interesting because writing that creates a different narrative arc. It's not about trying to find the power outside, it's actually about knowing you have it inside already.
Yes. Which is Sophia's journey, isn't it? Is finding
Mm.
her own power and being able to step into her power.
Yeah, and it resonated for me as a writer because I'm really in this place with as an author and with publishing where you've been doing it close to a decade, you've put out all these books you're proud of, and publishing is just really challenging. It's just there's so much out of our control. There's so much of gatekeepers that decide what gets put out and what doesn't, and who decides what is good and all of this stuff. And writing Sofia, knowing her end was going to be tragic and devoting love and passion to art anyways was really kind of cathartic to me because it was a reminder that the strength and the belief is already there and nothing in the external world can take that away from me.
Extremely good to remember that. So thank you so much for chatting with me, Kerry. This has really been a great conversation.
It has. Thanks for having me.